asks, why exercises or weight loss aren't a straight line?
I think you should read it slower.
Well, that is why it's it's just the way it's formulated. It kind of messed me up. Why exercises or weight loss aren't a straight line? We get what she means. So, why isn't progression so linear? Why is it not just super easy to just?
Because in some way, what you're trying to do is relatively linear, even if you're using the different training methods that we've spoken about before, DEP, all that kind of stuff. It's still technically a linear progression, just done in a different format.
Yeah, and so is conjugate. Conjugate's still linear in a way.
Ultimately, each session is adding something.
Ultimately, you're still getting better on those movements.
The reason why we'd say that progression isn't linear, because what you'll see is the same with weight loss. Typically, it won't just be that. What we want it just to be we're here, we're at this point, X point here, and it just steadily goes down like this. Whereas in reality, it will look more like this because of the way the body adapts to the training. You're not going to
and daily fluctuations as well. It's daily fluctuations
water,
in weight as well.
Salt levels, carbohydrates, all that kind of stuff. It's not just going to look perfectly in line because there's so many extraneous variables as you go through. Yeah,
so you'll often see someone's weight loss. They'll be 100 kg, and then the next day they'll be 99.9, and then 100.1,
and then gained weight.
Yeah, and you haven't. No. It's as long as we're looking at that week and you've trended down in the week. Or even larger, even 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. As long as the trending down line is still there, then we're doing all right.
Yeah, I've got a client who he's always, when he weighs himself on the Monday, he's always heavier because he always tends to have more salty food at the weekend.
Cheats a little bit on the weekend.
But he doesn't have excess calories on that day. But he has, more
he does have
carbohydrate,
more,
carbohydrate and salt-rich foods, and then he always weighs more. And then when he does
oh god!
Yeah, then when he does his midweek weigh-in, he's always trending.
He's got that beautiful
always on that downwards
bulk on over the weekend of just sodium and carbs.
It's interesting when you're looking at it that way.
Yeah.
And in terms of strength, it's a bit of a cliche. People always talk about plateaus, but after, say, about a year of decent training, it's going to be unlikely that you're going to see constant progression in weight.
Yeah.
I always use the analogy, otherwise we'd all be Superman.
Yeah, I mean, we would both be deadlifting 500 kilos plus if we
benching 500 kilos.
I say to guys, or girls, whoever who's starting with me, 1.25 or 1 kilo plate aside.
Biscuits.
Those little biscuit fractional plates. This is how you get strong, and we really do push that point for people. But the reality is, we would like that to be the case, but at some point that's no longer doable. We can't add 1.25.
Try to hold my hand.
Sorry,
it's exposed. What's happened?
Our marriage. You can't just stick a 1 kilo plate on a side every single week, unfortunately.
Because eventually you won't hit the sets and reps that have been allocated in particular.
But as a newbie, you can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But then after
you should almost.
And you should, And if you're not, there's probably an issue with your programming.
Yeah. Or there's an issue in your food and your sleep.
Yeah.
Which we slightly digress, but you've got to think of training is what gives you the potential to grow and get stronger. But if you don't eat and you don't sleep, it's impossible.
Yeah.
You've just pulled the rug out under your feet.
Yeah. You can train as much as you want. If you're not recovering, it's not going to happen.
You're just doing the worm on the floor.
But basically to finish on that point.
Do you like that analogy of the worm?
No, it was okay.
Serious.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to make a point here. It can't be linear forever, and this is where you have to just be smarter with programming over time. It's just varying intensity, frequency, volume over time. When you're a more experienced lifter, you have to play around with those elements a little bit more. You can't just keep on increasing intensity.
That's when those assistance exercises become.
Yeah.
That's where they really get their merit. It's the fact that you say your bench press may stagnate slightly, but a variation of that may be still going up, and ultimately you're still trending upwards. You've just got stuck on a particular weight for say a couple of weeks.
For example, on your bench, let's say your triceps are a weakness and you're doing a close grip bench. That close grip is probably the element of that's going to bring the bench up. It's probably the strongest triceps.
Your lockout is what you're missing.
Yeah.
So it's like what John Hack said, which really goes, I've been adding 1.25 and I've cracked training. It's no one's ever done this before. And he's considered basically the new GOAT of powerlifting. And he's just every week I'm adding 1.25. No one's ever done this before. I'm breaking records.
Yeah.
Progressive overload.
Yeah, weird that would work. Okay, and last question from James. How long should you train for before taking steroids?
Ooh, contentious.
We're both natty.
Natural, if you don't know the abbreviation.
Yes, so we're both natural, so it's difficult to.
Someone's like, no, you're not.
Definitely, someone's going to say it, but about you. No one says it about. Well, some people say it about me, but less common.
I'm I'll say about you.
That's a very tight top. You do look quite large. Show
you can't see it. Look,
just bring the arm up.
No,
flex a bit.
Get up the hair.
Okay.
I've got a couple of tracks.
How long should you train before taking steroids? You can train. You can technically train forever.
Yeah.
And never need
Which
to.
is what I mean. When did you start training?
I started training when I was like 16, 17.
Started training when I was 15. So that's 13 years.
Yeah. So
it's a reasonably long time.
Yeah. So and we're still progressing now. You just hit a 300 kg deadlift.
Yes.
You know, I've got 280 kg farmers.
Yeah.
Pretty decent.
I was going to let you know, that's not what you have on the
deadlift. No, I wasn't going to say deadlift. No.
Which is very impressive.
And a 120 log and all that, and you know those have been improvements that I've made in the last year. So like
everything's gone up.
You can keep improving. Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, people would just get to a point and they're just like, no, not going to stop training because I can't get any.
And if COVID hadn't happened,
we'd even be much. Yeah, we'd be much stronger. We were limited by the amount of weight that I had in a parking space with my deadlift bar from a block, annoying my neighbours.
Yeah, but it was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. People liked it actually, and my neighbours were pretty cool.
I was hanging off a tree doing rings, and people were telling me to leave.
Yeah. Some people. Losers. Let's be honest.
Pickets and torches, just like, get off our tree.
Yeah, get off our tree.
Oh, it's public property.
It's a park.
That wasn't actually a park, it was literally like...
Oh, it was when we did it.
Yeah.
We used to have quite epic, we used to have quite epic, like 7 a.m. sessions in the misty cold.
-3.
Yeah. There was 1 or 2 mornings which was...
Does it sound like we're trying to make it seem that we're cool?
We're quite cool.
Okay.
We're cool.
-3 in the winter of England.
Of England. It's not that epic. There wasn't snow or anything. But it was cold.
Not a single,
it was definitely cold.
No white anywhere.
But we're completely going off topic.
I don't know what the question was.
Yeah, steroids. So you don't have to take steroids at all. You could. I mean, the progression would become a lot slower after a certain point, and that's what we found. Is like, we do get to a point where the progression is definitely a lot slower. But there are so many things that you can tap before needing to get on gear. Of like optimizing recovery, optimizing your sleep, your nutrition, your training, your programming, your technique.
People that haven't optimized those things and will go onto some really, really hardcore.
When they haven't nailed all that first. Like, to me, it's a little bit mad when guys haven't been programming properly, don't eat perfectly, and don't get enough sleep, and then they're like, I'm getting on test, and you're like, why?
I always go back to the analogy of this guy, lovely guy, pretty strong, on gear, like I was sharing a room with him, and he had all his stuff lined out.
You're throwing shade at this guy, right?
No, he's a legend. He's a lovely guy. I won't mention him, of course.
Okay.
But he had all of his. It was very open about it, which is a nice thing. A lot of people in the industry aren't open about it. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, what calories and stuff are you on? He was like, oh, I don't do that. With like 7 different containers of things.
Bottles.
But you don't check your food. He's like, no, I never have. And I was like, that.
Then why are you on gear?
Yeah, and then he was like, and I can feel my liver.
I can feel my liver.
You shouldn't be feeling it.
You should definitely shouldn't be feeling your internal organs.
Smooth muscle shouldn't be something you're like, oh, I think I pulled it.
Pulled my liver.
He's a great guy, but that was funny.
Yeah, that's
someone go that extreme.
I would say, you know, if you're trying to compete, if you're competing in, your objective is to compete in bodybuilding or a non-drug tested powerlifting or strongman federation, and you have really specific goals. I would understand getting on gear, and I'll be honest here as well. Like, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. Like, my objective is to get to England's strongest man, and I have considered it, and I probably will at some point get on it. Like, that is the honest truth. I'll be honest about that. But you know, I have also been training for like over 10 years, really hard, 4 to 5 times a week, with my food, nutrition, and programming on point.
The caveat to that would be that he's got to a reasonably high level, and he could potentially make it to English Strongest Man and whatever it may be further with enhancement. You should also consider, like, if you're just doing it for health and vanity, which is absolutely fine, like it's bad to want to look better, then you've got to consider, like, if you're high level and you think you could go to the next level if you were to take steroids, then you can think like if it could be your career and you may make something out of it, then there's more leaning towards that. But if you're just doing it recreationally, it's a real commitment.
It's an odd thing to get on gear when you're just recreationally just lifting in the gym. The reality is you can look great, like you can look amazing, lean, like good amount of muscle, healthy, and be completely natural.
Yeah, and not have to worry.
It's not necessary to get on gear.
You don't have to worry about so many things.
You know, as you were saying, like Josh Bridgman, I'll use him as an example. Like he's kind of know him indirectly through my cousin, but he's just got his IFBB Pro card, so like a bodybuilding pro.
He's got great cuffs.
He's got great 1MR. If you're looking for any good lifting gear, 1MR is amazing. He was really amazing as a natural, had already been lifting for ages, had competed multiple times naturally, and he knew that to get to that next level and to get his IFBB Pro card, he had to get on gear.
When was it you changed? Was he like 28?
26 or 7, I think he got on stuff.
Oh, really?
But in any case, when he did that, he was very conscious of like how he had to do it. He was like doing it with as much information as possible and with a very specific goal in mind. And then he was like, I know I have to do this to get there.
But he's also been honest and said he could potentially have got more out of himself naturally he said, on gear.
He said, I wasn't at my genetic limit, but I knew what my objectives were and I knew what I had to do. So he
potentially could have waited a little bit longer, but he had a time frame he wanted to do certain things.
Yeah, and that's his personal choice, and like to him it made sense, and that he knows
he is an IFBB Pro.
And he's got his IFBB Pro card now, and that's kudos to him. That's amazing, and he's done a really good job. But he knows the risks, and he knows that it's not like this really healthy sport. It is if you want to compete.
But he does it right with the things you would always say, like getting your blood.
He's getting his blood. Well, that's a huge thing as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're thinking about getting on gear, get everything checked. Check your blood pressure. Get an EKG.
You need to build up a biological profile, just so you have a reference point. Essentially.
Yeah. So know what you're like, natty.
Yeah.
And then if you were to get onto stuff, then you can, a few months down the line, have a look at where your bloods are. 6 to 8 weeks into getting on stuff, have a look at your bloods again, and if they're way off, then you need to fucking chill.
And realistically, before you went on, you'd want to do something like four blood tests throughout the year, so you have a more accurate profile.
Yeah, you have
so your reference point
an
is
average.
Better, because sometimes you can be affected by like if you had some drinks at the weekend, if you're stressed and things like that. So you get at least like an average biological profile, and then when you were to go on it, you'd actually have something to call back to that was much more reliable than just say one snippet.
And unfortunately, if we're talking about the sport of bodybuilding, which is where it's the most prevalent, obviously steroid use, but
is it the most prevalent technically?
What do you mean?
Lots of other sports have tons of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sure. But that's where it's the most necessary to thrive, though.
It's most physically obvious. Physically.
Physically?
That's visibly and physically in one. Physically obvious.
But yeah, unfortunately, we've just had a load of deaths in bodybuilding recently, and we can very much attribute that to steroid abuse. There's obviously other elements in play.
There are nuances to
it. There is other stuff that comes into account, but
it
definitely plays a part. And we've just had a lot of really high profile, high level bodybuilders just pass away. So there are massive risks that come with it, and
some people were really careful.
Some people were careful.
He had the genetic.
John Meadows was careful. Yeah, he had an issue with clotting, but a lot of people are not doing their due diligence and testing enough and getting their bloods done and everything. So if you
Ignorance is bliss mentality.
Yeah, and they're just like, it won't affect me. It will affect you.
Which is what you think when you're young about everything as well.
Yeah. So if you are thinking about getting on gear, just get your bloods done. Try to eke out as much as you can before you jump on. I would always suggest training for a good few years.
Yeah, but
naturally
people
first.
Typically say that there's a fallacy going around at the moment, which is like if you train for 3 years, that you're at your genetic peak. But that's implying that everything was perfect.
Yeah.
And I've never met anyone that's done everything perfectly from the get-go.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really sort of shallow estimate of how much time you need.
Because we're still progressing now, and we're 10 years deep.
And when you start anything, you kind of suck at it.
Yeah.
And then you get better.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who just started squatting perfectly immediately from the get-go. Yeah. It's difficult. Things take time.
Don't squat, so bad for you.
So that's basically it. I'm just looking at. This is quite long now. This is 25 minutes.
Oh,
God! It's the longest thing that's ever happened.
We'll have to split it up.
Maybe. We'll see.
No one was going to care for this long.
They will. We're interesting, I think. Anyway.
To some.
What? To some, yeah. To some.
To others, no.
We're just bro meathead idiots, aren't we?
We're together. We've revealed it now. We're married.
We're together.
I didn't enjoy that though.
You did a little bit. Basically that's it for today, guys.
If there's any other questions for future things, anything fitness, shoot them below.
Yeah, and we'll answer.
We do get asked a bonus question by should we name? Let's name him Rich. Yeah, it's an ambiguous name, isn't it? Who said, "Could we do a podcast shirtless?"
Oh,
yeah. And the answer is we could potentially.
For only
will we? Probably not. But
No.
but do we have the capacity to do it?
Give me enough money.
Yes.
I'll sell my soul.
Oh.
I'll sell my soul.
It's like when someone says, "Can you turn the light off?" You're like, "Yes, I can. Thank you for asking."
Yeah, no, we're not going to take our shirts off for a podcast, okay?
Yeah.
And stop asking. You're making me feel uncomfortable.
Stop objectifying us.
Yeah, so anyway.
And I'm never going to show you my traps.
They're not there. Yeah, so like, subscribe, comment,
Ring the bell.
ring the bell, and yeah, we'll be filming a few more. We're going to try to be a bit more consistent.
Yeah,
We
this
were
may
off
be
for a few.
episode 6 and 7.
Yeah, it might be 6 and 7, might be just 6, we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Long.
Lots of love, guys.
XOXO.
Gossip girl.
See ya.
Bye.